Parametric shapes, substance materials, also parametric, and shiny new vector upgrades like full SVG support are just a few of the treats waiting in the latest After Effects beta. So buckle up as we explore what's new, what's great, and what could still use a bit of Adobe magic. Now, as you know, Adobe MAX is right around the corner, which means it's Christmas for creatives. New tools, new toys, and plenty of reasons to update just one more time. After Effects didn't sit this one out, so today I'll show you some game-changing improvements that make 3D faster, easier, and way more fun. For what it's worth, I'm also going to offer my take on it. Now, if you'll be at Adobe MAX LA this year, come and say hi or join one of my labs or sessions. I've got a bunch of cool stuff planned and can't wait to share it with you. And if you can't make it in person, no worries, you can still catch my online session about AI and After Effects. It's free for everyone and the details are just below in the description. All right, with that out of the way, let's dive in and play with our brand new toys. We'll start with substance materials. Let's first define what they are. Basically, a parametric 3D materials that you can create in Substance Designer, Painter, or Sampler. And folks at Adobe calls them Subsars for short. And since I want to sound cool too, I'll stick with that. So think of Subsars as the Mogarts for 3D materials. Creators can decide which parameters to expose when publishing, giving you tons of customization power. Now, Adobe swears this isn't a marketing stunt, and to prove it, the only link they are providing through the app is to their free collection page with around 300 Subsars, and you can of course browse them and download them and use them immediately. Just bring them inside After Effects. I'll show you how in a moment. Now, although they are saying that, when I'm recording this tutorial, the link takes me, as you can see, to the 3D community assets, which is the entire library. So perhaps a better approach right now will be to use the Creative Cloud app. Over here, you can click on Stock and Marketplace, and then on 3D, and then you can navigate to the free stuff. And this, of course, may change in the future. So the workflow to apply Subsars is a little different from what you might have been used to. And let me walk you through how to make the most out of it. So I already downloaded a few of those materials. Notice that you also have access to models that are coming without any material, so you can assign them yourself. This is what I did over here. So I'll switch to After Effects. And as you can see, we have those 3 vintage models that I'm using in order to demonstrate it. And some of them already has some Subsars materials. So all the materials, after downloading them, basically just need to bring them into the project. I've named my folder here Materials. Now, in order to show you how this works, I'll select this telephone, and then I'll switch my active camera to custom view 1, which I already set in advance just so we can focus on this device. Now, as you can see over here in the properties panel, we have some material assignment, and this is true for whatever material you're going to choose. So depending on the model, you may have more than just 4 or 5 options. And if the model was split to those options, basically you can select each one of them. I'm currently selecting the general material, which is the material for this. And then I can assign a material, and this list is going to show us everything that the project has. So if I'll switch to, let's go with Plastic Weaver, it's going to change the material over here. And now we can change the settings. So let's start with the material assignment. This gives you basic UV parameters. So you can change the offset, and you can also change the rotation as well as the scale. Now, in this case, this may not be the best material to demonstrate it with. So let's switch to something else, like maybe this liquid color vibes. Now, if I'll change the options here, you can see how they're going to apply to the model. Now, I think the best way to work with this is to double click on the options here. So if I double click on the material assignment, it's going to be exposed here in the timeline, meaning that I can easily access all the groups here in the timeline and quickly apply materials for them. Maybe even select everything and apply the same material. So let's just try something like liquid colors for everything which was published. In this case, you can see that some of the parts of the models are being protected, so we can't access them. All right, I'll undo just to get back to the previous stage. I'll reselect the model and I'm going to select the material over here, which is going to light up all the material options that we have. And we can also double click on this. And this will expose everything that we can animate in the timeline. So if you want, you can record animation for the texture offset. Let's just do this quickly just to demonstrate the ability. I'm just going to move it like so, as well as the rotation and the scale. I think this is self-explanatory. I'll quickly preview it so you can see how fast it goes. But in this case, I'm not going to actually use it. Instead, I'm going to delete these keyframes, and then I can go to this flyout menu and I can choose to reset the material. And as you can see, in my case, it doesn't work. I'm not sure why, probably a bug in the release that I'm using. So you can try to use one of those presets. Let's try those and see if those are doing anything. And in this case, you can see that they are doing something. But for now, let's see what we can do with them over here. So obviously we can select a different resolution, and this is going to change the way it's rendering. So you can go up to 4K. Choose whatever works for you, and because we are very close to this device, this makes sense in this case. You can also, by the way, go to the layer menu, and from the material options, you have the same controls that I just showed you. You can reveal the material source in project, you can reset it, and of course you can access the community assets. I'll show you in a minute the usage for this duplicate. So let's try to reset it from here. And you can also click randomize, by the way, and this is going to just change the random seed. And as you can see, this helps to update the material in the viewport. So if you want, you can do it manually, of course. You can choose different colors here. Let's just change color number 5 to something crazy like pink. And you can see immediately how this works. You can change the layer amount, the noise variation. Again, those features are based on whatever the creator chose to publish. Then you have some technical parameters such as luminosity, contrast, hue shift, saturation, normal intensity, height range, and height position. And this may change in the future. Now, I do want to warn you that these are very sensitive. So if you just try to scrub them, they're going to quickly go from 0 to 1. I think a better way of handling this is maybe by using the same scale value over here with percentage, but we'll see what happens. So right now, if I want to change the luminosity, my best bet is probably to type it in, let's say 0.3, and then I can do the same thing for the other options. So maybe let's raise the contrast over here and create this very fancy phone material. Now, of course, we can also choose different materials from here or directly from the timeline. I'm going to reset all of the materials assignments here by right-clicking on it and choosing reset. These options are not going to be reset even if we are going to change it over here and reset the material. So again, something to just bear in mind. And then I can just switch different materials directly from the timeline. So I can try maybe this plastic weave material or this smoked plastic, and you can see how this works. So I'm going to reselect the material again and maybe just change the color for this one so it will be more or less like what it was before. Okay, I'm going to switch to the pan under the cursor tool, and then let's just focus on those two reels that we have here for the reel-to-reel tape. I'll close this model, I'll select this one, and I want to show you another scenario. Let's say that I want to apply different materials for each one of those reels. First, I need to identify the mesh selection that I want to apply the material to. And again, my preferred way of working is to just double click on the material assignment and do it from the timeline, since I can see all of them together. So I can see there is a reel option. Let's try this liquid color vibes that we created. Okay, as you can see, this is what we are getting. I'll reset this material. It still remembers what we did before. And because we are so zoomed in, I'm also going to change the resolution to 4K. And now let's say that I want to apply a different variation of this to the other wheel here, which is this button. So I'm not sure why this is happening. Sometimes the naming here are not matched with the logical way of naming stuff. Again, I'm not sure if this is something to do with the way this was built or something to do with the way After Effects is interpreting this. Anyhow, I'll choose the same thing because I happen to know that this is the second reel. And as you can see, we have the same material applied, although this is taking a different angle due to the fact that it is rotated differently. And more on that in a moment. But let's say that now I want to change those colors. So I can select either one of these, doesn't really matter. And let's just try to apply a different preset to this guy. Maybe go with this yellow poured paint. So the moment I'll select it, it's going to change both of them. And this is because After Effects is referencing the same material the same way it works with compositions. So if we do want a different instance, we need to duplicate it. So I'll undo the last modification just to bring back the previous colors, which are not coming back. So I'll choose default, I suppose. And then I'm going to upraise them to 4K, or at least the one that I'm selecting here. And now, while this is selected, I'll go to the flyout menu again, and I'll choose duplicate and assign material, which is going to duplicate it here in the project panel and automatically assign it to the mesh. And now I can choose a different preset. So let's go with this yellow poured paint again. And this time we have two individual copies. So now I'll return back to my active camera just to have a look at the scene from a distance. And I just want to call your attention to the fact that everything that we got so far in terms of lighting and shadows is supported as well. But quickly, I'm going to return to the environment light, and you can see that I'm using an HDRI image as a light source. In this case, this is this blue photo studio, but I can easily switch it to another one, which is going to, of course, affect everything in the scene. Now, is this better than working with something that was originally texturized and assigned in 3D? Perhaps not, but it gives you a lot of control. And just to prove my point, I'll switch off this reel-to-reel tape and I'll turn on this reel-to-reel tape, which I got from Sketchfab. And as you can see, this already came up with all the textures intact. So I can still select it, I can still see the mesh selection, and if there's a need, I can go, for example, to the base or to the details or to the glass or to the other materials, and I can still modify them. So just to illustrate, if I'll change the way the material is being scaled, you can see how this is going to impact the material which is projected, UV projected on this model. So you still have more control than what you did in the past, but again, this is still going to be improved as we are getting more and more refinements from the team. So what do I think about it? Overall, I think this is great, but my biggest wish is the, of course, ability to apply a composition as a material, something that I created to the image inside After Effects. I think this would be huge. Right now, the fact that you need Substance tools to create these materials make it a bit niche and maybe just pricey for some users. And just to be fair, I think the free collection should cover most people's needs. By the way, let me know in the comments below if you like me to make a tutorial on creating your own Subsar materials. I also wish we could apply Subsars to text and shapes. I think this is just something which needs to be here. And I know this is already on Adobe's roadmap, so fingers crossed we are going to get it sooner rather than later. I already mentioned it, but I think those sliders over here, the one that you can't animate, can be a little too sensitive. So a 0 to 1% range would make them way more sensible than 0 to 1. And now let's move to the next big thing, which is parametric shapes. So these new primitives are basically the building blocks that exist in both the toolbar as well as the Layer New menu. Each one of them can be modified using the Properties panel, and most of them have bevels as well. So if you want, you can double click on one of those shapes, and this is going to create a shape in the middle of the screen using the default settings. Or you can select one of them. I'll go with the cone and modify the settings until you're happy with it. So maybe let's try to create some sort of a raindrop. And then you can also, if you want, control the side value to make them more polygonal. So create some sort of a low poly look. Now, some of them also have this slice control. So for example, if I'll select the cylinder, I can play with it and we can use it to create a cyclorama around all the objects. I'll show you in a moment how this is very useful. Now I'll select the cone mesh and start to drag it, just to show you that this one is going to obey the direction that you are dragging it. So you can drag it up or down, depending on what you want to create. While you are creating, you can also hold down spacebar and move it so you can align things using your eye where they need to be. You can also select one of them in the comp viewer, hold down the option key and start to drag in order to duplicate them here inside this viewer. Now, by default, new meshes are created on a plane which is perpendicular to the camera. To illustrate it, I'll select the sphere tool and create a few spheres in this scene. But notice what happens when I'm orbiting the camera past 45 degrees. The active plane now becomes the floor. So when I'll create new meshes, those will be added to the new floor. Now again, everything here is still in flux mode, so if you think this doesn't make sense, comment here below, or even better, let Adobe know by using the feedback bubble at the upper side of the screen. Another thing that you probably already noticed is that those meshes has built-in materials, and you can even use emission for creating a reflective light. To illustrate it even better, I'll switch to this composition that I've created ahead of time. And this one, of course, uses also some Subsar's materials. Over here, you can see this is an emittive material, and you can see the influence of it on other stuff. Now I'm going to select this cube, or at least something that started as a cube. Now it's a bit more stretched, and I'm going to define a material to it. So I'll use this pop-up menu, and I happen to know that I want to use this ripstop fabric oceanic digital camouflage material. Really nice. And this is how it looks. As before, I can use these scale options and change the way the UV projection is being treated. By default, you can see that the projection mode is set to stretched, meaning that when I'm doing this modification, this is basically stretching the material on top of the mesh. If you want another behavior, you can change it to proportional. And now notice that it uses a different method of UV mapping. So depending on what you need, you can switch between those two projection modes. And always remember, you can animate those textures. So you can move the texture and create some really interesting stuff, as well as always check the presets. Most of those materials comes with different presets. So let's just switch it to something else to see how this works. If you don't think this works for you, you can just click on randomize or pick another random seed. Again, let's pick something else just to see the variation. And if this doesn't work for you, go ahead, change the scale, maybe make it larger, and also raise the resolution to make it look a bit better. And of course, if those colors insult you in some way, you can always click on them and choose something different, which is also going to be updated automatically. As I mentioned before, this also supports the HDR environment light. So I'm just going to drag this image over here. I got this one from Polyhaven, but you can also download some free HDRI images from the Substance community. And then I'm going to create a new light which is going to be obviously an environment light. I'm not going to cast any shadows here, but I'll switch it to use this blue Photo Studio light just to show you how everything works in concert. So just to show you, as promised, what I did here, I think it's under everything here, maybe this is the guy, a psych image that I've created using the cylinder, which is basically sliced to 180 degrees. To show it to you from a different angle, let's choose Custom View 1, and then I'll press C to orbit the camera around, and you can see how I've managed to build it. I'll press Escape to go back to the default camera, and then I'll select this cube and move it out of the way and show you another favorite feature, which is the ability to support the alpha channel inside the Subsar material. And to make it more apparent, I'll go back to the environment light and tone it down to maybe 40% so we can see the shadows. And then reselect this cylinder and we can play with the scale, for example. And you can see how the light and shadows are being affected by this. Let's zoom even closer because it's really looking beautiful the way it catches the light here. And we're going to also orbit around it. And I also want to make sure you remember that under the advanced 3D options, you can control the render quality of everything that we are seeing here using this single slider. So because I'm not using any environment light shadows, these are irrelevant. But if I raise the render quality over here, I'm going to get better results by rendering softer, nicer shadows here, which always makes me happy. But this brings us to the million-dollar question. What's the performance hit when you throw all these new features together? How fast does it handle heavy scenes? To test it, I built this massive composition with more than 140 layers of parametric meshes and a few models as well. Now, it may look like a simple scene, but once I unhide the shine layers, you'll see what's really going on here. Now, if you're wondering what this scene is all about, let's quickly switch to Custom View 1, and there they are, the Fantastic Four. No, not the Marvel ones, the other Fabs, frozen in time, crossing Abbey Road. It's surprisingly responsive, as you can see when I orbit and dolly the camera. But let's put this 10 seconds Minecraft version to the real test and preview the motion that I've created for the first camera. As you can see, this scene includes different materials for most meshes, some heavily modified, by the way, and there are also plenty of intricate trees that I've duplicated all over the place, as well as a couple of cars inspired by the timeless artwork photo. So I'm timing my preview, but I'll speed it up to save some time. And here I must tell you that there is a quite big difference, at least to my experience, between Mac and Windows. On my M4 Pro Mac, this scene took more than 8 minutes to render, just a tad more. But on my Dell machine, equipped with an NVIDIA CUDA card, it took less than 2 minutes, which is really impressive in both cases. But if you have a CUDA-enabled card, you'll get much more speed out of the advanced 3D renderer. Just to make sure this wasn't a flop, let's try another camera angle that I've created. And in this case, I'm going to again speed up the cache process. And I'll tell you that on the Mac, it took just under 5 minutes. And 1.5 minutes on Windows. Not bad at all. So while this is looping a few more times, let me share some of my personal thoughts. I think it's great that Adobe is truly investing in the advanced 3D renderer. It honestly feels like it gets better and better with every release. That said, there are still few things on my wish list. First and foremost, we still don't have motion blur or, more importantly, depth of field. Also, inter-object reflections are also missing. And I know this is not a true ray traced engine, which makes sense, but maybe some faux version like effect instances could work here. I don't know, I'm just asking. I'm also really hoping for 3D splines. This would be a total game changer. I can tell you that after spending hours building these Playmobil Beatles, I realized that I'd love a quick shortcut key to cycle through those different meshes. Something like the Q key that does it for masks and shapes. That alone would speed things up a lot, at least for me. I also wish we could align objects in 3D space. It's about time, not just snap them. I will also mention that I would love to see some shape layer operators. Imagine if we just have the 3D repeater, this would turn them into a true MoGraph tools. Maybe one day we'll get those effectors and modifiers, and this would be wild. Hey, I can dream, right? Anyway. This is my wish list and my personal critique, but I'd love to hear yours too. So share your thoughts in the comments and make sure to also communicate them with Adobe. But if you are still watching, we are not done yet. Let's check our final feature for this beta. I know this is a long tutorial, but I promise you, it is worth your time. This is SVG support and gradient fields for vector layers. So I brought a Finder window on top of After Effects, and I've got two files here. Two of them are vector files. The first one is this SVG file. And look at what we can do right now. We can just drag and drop it into After Effects, and After Effects is going to create a comp out of it and convert everything to shape layers. So this is just a one frame comp. If you want to use this one, you need to go ahead to the composition settings and change the duration to something longer, I suppose at least 5 seconds, but it's up to you. Or you can just drag this shape outside and go ahead and use it. If I'll open its contents, you can see that we have access to all the groups. And you may also see that gradients are being supported, which is new, not just for SVG, but also for Illustrator file. So I'll go back to this Finder window. I have this artwork created inside Illustrator, and you can see that I've got a couple of gradients layers. So I'll drag and drop it into After Effects. I'm going to say, well, I want a composition out of it and give me the layer size for the footage dimensions, nothing new here. And then I'll double click on it. It's going to create the composition, in this case 5 seconds long, based on the last composition that I've created. And now I'm going to select both of the lighthouse and the blue gradient layers. Both of them have gradients inside. And I'll right click and choose create shapes from vector layer. And this, of course, will switch off the visibility of the original layer and create two shape layers. So sometimes you will need to modify the gradient. So for example, this group 1, which has the gradient fill layer, if I'll click on it, I can see that everything survived. And by the way, this works with more than just 2 color stops. But sometimes you'll need to modify the opacity settings. For whatever reasons, this is not translating correctly in this case. But it is a huge improvement that we can now control and modify and edit those gradients. Let's check the other layer over here. I'll select group number 1. It's actually this group, and I'll click on fill color, and we can see that everything survived in this case, including the opacity stop. But of course, we can modify it. We can add more colors if we like, and we can animate them as we like. So really good stuff, very simple. There's not a lot I can say about it. I will give you my personal opinion as promised. I think that this is great, but I wish Illustrator free from gradients were also supported, and I still wait to get editable text support from Illustrator, which is still not here. As far as scalable vector graphics goes, I wish also SVG fonts were supported. While they are already in Premiere Pro, it's about time we will get support for them here inside After Effects. So that's it, an impressive batch of new tools to supercharge your 3D workflow and some vector improvements inside After Effects. As I keep saying, this is still work in progress, so give it a try and share your feedback with Adobe. They are listening, and your input can literally help shape the future of After Effects and maybe even the future of this channel. Who knows? If you made it so far, drop a cube emoji in the comments below, and don't forget to switch that bell icon from silent to loud.